What's going on, RedWolfVion here, and today we are joined by another amazing individual of the community, Gustave. Hello, Gustave.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing here?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. Thank you for, setting aside some time to chit-chat with your boy. It means a lot. I'm kind of excited to have people kind of get to know you a little bit better.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the opportunity as well.
So, we're just going to jump right into it. Gustave, everyone, you may have seen this awesome individual. He was one of the members of the podcast Downtime in the Hangar, which I was able to appear as a special guest. If you haven't checked that VOD out, make sure to do so, as well as checking their respective channels. I'll have Gustave's information in the description below, so make sure you hit them buttons, them links, likes, follows, all the stuff. Let's get into it.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm. So, Gustave, let's start with some just general Gundam stuff. Overall, what got you into Gundam?
So, much like, I'm probably going to have to out myself a little bit age-wise, but much like most people from the Toonami era, it was mostly Gundam Wing, a lot of the other things coming up on TV. Unlike other anime, it didn't really get picked up by local networks that easily, so that was just a very big funnel for a lot of people. After that, I started watching a lot more Universal Century, and as I got older, I finally got to catch up on things like Zeta Gundam, Double Zeta, and whatnot. Funny enough, Gundam vs. Zeta Gundam was actually on PS2 a ways back, and I had no idea what the latter was for the longest time until I actually was able to watch it freely.
That's awesome, because I feel as if it was definitely harder for us to get Gundam content in the West, because every so often, like for PlayStation 2, we get lucky if we had like maybe 4 or 5 Gundam games, come to the West. And maybe for the longest time, it feels like a PlayStation would have a launch Gundam title, and then we might get another title. But I remember that was, Zeta versus Double Zeta or whatever. And then we had like Encounters in Space, stuff like that. I thought that was a really cool era of Gundam games too, back in the day.
Oh yeah. I feel like also very recently, considering things like Battle Alliance and whatnot, that we're seeing a bit of a resurgence. It feels little by little a bit like that era. We actually were more spoiled than I think we gave credit for back then, despite a lot of those being kind of like in the same engine and kind of doing the same thing, but it was a lot of things that would come back, interestingly enough, like storyline-wise, that would return in things like G-Generation Genesis and whatnot, for anyone who's a fan of like turn-based strategy. So people who played those games like Encounters in Space or like Zeonic Front and whatnot actually had a lot of that story already given to them, just in a different form.
Yeah, it's really awesome, and I know that was part of the follow-up question regarding, how long you've been interested into Gundam games and franchise, and it kind of explains itself here because, watching it from Toonami leading to now, it's really dope, and I will always tell people this: we're at a point in time, like you just said, it's a good time to be a Gundam fan. It's even better time to become a Gundam fan. We have, a resurgence of like a lot of Gunpla. I feel as if Gundam Build Fighters came out, and it helped Gunpla get that much more popular. And then we have, Battle Alliance, we have Evolution, we had a new Gundam Breaker come over here to the West, we had Gundam Battle Operation 2 come on the West. Like, I won't forget when they announced that coming to the West. I low-key lost my mind.
Yeah, I had actually, so for a lot of things, when it came to things that weren't exported here or like imported here, I actually kind of just stood off from them. GBO2 was one of the few that I actually made exception for. And I kind of just resigned to the idea that it was never going to be like westernized, but then we got that English patch early on when it was still in the JP client. I was like, ooh, well, that's interesting, but it's probably a regional thing, right? It was easy to write it off as just an extra thing that they were covering their bases, or them just being maybe slightly more conscious of there being like an English-speaking presence within the game.
Right.
And then that was going to be the extent of it. But then, as it turns out, maybe I think a year or so later, on I think around Halloween actually, we finally got that English client, And there's been a lot of ups and downs in terms of stability and whatnot, but it's been interesting to see them play through that and actually just grow over the last 4 years or so.
Oh, most definitely. And like now, they've done like actual giveaways for the Western audience, which you've been part of this game and its community for quite some time, so when we see like the Japanese account be like, oh, giveaway this cool bag or these cool postcards, and you're like, man, that's really cool. I wish I could.
I sure can't wait to buy that Dyson from the lottery. Oh gosh.
And it's just like, man, I have to be a resident of Japan. I'm like,
yeah. Or like the bigger thing back then, especially pre-lockdown and whatnot, was they were doing live events. They were doing in-person stuff. So they had that one tournament that happened during the Gunpla Grand Prix, and then they never did that again for obvious reasons. But also they would do some like events where people would actually be able to do like physical leaks of suits that they were introducing. That's how we got to know about some of that. And interestingly enough, what was it? Honestly, Anime Expo actually gave us another chance to have that happen. I think it was the Bound Dog that was actually leaked early on. And it's funny because we were so used to that not happening that a bunch of people called foul and were immediately just like, nah, it's fake, get out of here with that shit. And it's like, oh no, actually, that's exactly what it turned out to be. After all this time and after us being way past the Zeta era within the game itself, that it actually happened like, what, two years ago at this point.
Yeah. And you mentioning that was a good example because, like you said, they revealed that in the United States that Bondoc was going to be in GBO2. They had like a whole Gundam event thing, which was really, really cool.
That was a big first as well. Like, because initially it felt more like it was going to be for, Battle Alliance is on the way. Evolution, you would have thought they would have pushed a little bit more, but, they're doing their network tests and whatnot anyway. But it's nice that we actually had a good chunky segment for GBO2 in there.
Yeah.
At least relatively, if nothing else.
Yeah, I really hate that I wasn't able to attend AX. I've never attended AX, but I hope they do something like that next time and I'll be able to attend. It'd be really neat to experience that because
it's definitely very different to be there in person.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, sitting in the crowd, seeing live reactions, because I like going to events and stuff like that. Or I used to prior to COVID hitting the U.S. and everything. But, that's really cool. So let's kind of that was awesome segment. So when it comes to GBO2, you've been playing for quite some time. You even mentioned how you had the original Japanese client. But now that you've been playing GBO2 for such a long time, what is your favorite role into GBO2 out of general raid and support?
So short answer is general. I would say that I've kind of just been there for a lot of the time, although I feel like a lot of newer players tend to get a little bit more comfortable either midlining general or having like a heavier support background. Having that buffer and just being able to place your shots and still making a difference is pretty nice, especially when you're talking about like 6v6s where you have an extra body to go around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as tends to happen, especially as you start climbing and raiding, you have to start understanding the importance of like melee and getting in there more, and it turns slowly but surely. It turns less into a shooty game and more into a fighting game. So I feel like there's even if it's not as in depth, it's more in depth than most games like this would ever be in terms of fisticuffs. So there's a little bit of crossover even within that.
No, that's a great observation, and being one that's also played like rated matches and stuff, like the game has definitely evolved in terms of like your skill set and your kit for each suit, and I really like it. So I'm gonna backtrack again. I know you mentioned that GBO2 was one of the few games that you played like via import or other. Like, do you remember how exactly you got into GBO2 per se, or did you just like come across it, anything like that?
So I was aware of the first battle operations a while back. Unfortunately, during that era, I was actually running Xbox. I never actually got enough money to just buckle down and get a PS3. Otherwise, I probably would have messed with it back then before I even really gave too much of a shit about importing and all that good stuff. But I was aware of it from there, and then eventually I had seen some videos on YouTube and whatnot. A lot of God, what were some of the first ones for JP? Midfoot Strike, and I think. Oh god, there was a few actually. One of them was also Gecko, who's the got the frog avatar, and they have like other like commentaries and stuff. It's also kind of hard to tell because a lot of them don't use their own voices. It tends to just be text to speech.
Yeah.
So they could be anyone and anything. But then again, I am a disembodied voice right now too. How would you know? Ooh, but a lot of just seeing that go down was what got me into it, and I really did want to try it after a while because I seeing how storied a lot of those channels already were, and the fact that they were leading into, I think at that point it was only like a couple months worth of it, and the FOMO just hit me hard. Like I really just wanted to get in there, so like I figured out how to make the other account, and I got myself in there, and I was just playing on like a regular ass PS4, and after a while just started streaming off the PS4 itself. And you know, for my thing is generally like if I'm playing, then I'm streaming. There are very few times where I actually play offline, just because this is one of those few games and opportunities that's really an experience, especially if you're a Gundam fan. For all the like I said before, for all the ups and downs, this is a very unique situation to be in as a Gundam fan in the West. So you gotta just take it in as it comes, and while it's still here.
That was a good answer, bro. God dang, that was good. I'm over here like, fanning myself. So I love to hear it because I remember when I came across Gundam Battle Operation on PlayStation, I was like, man, how to play this game? I'm like, okay, I managed to get in and not create a character, but like try to play, but I realized it's like, it's an energy system. What? And at that time, I didn't play like free-to-play games. I didn't really understand. I was like, I guess I can't play this game since I don't understand anything that's going on. I don't know what to do. And then I tried Gundam Operation Next. I was like, I have an energy cost, but I did play Next. I played Next more than I played Operation 1, which my Operation 1 is like abysmal. Next was not abysmal, but let's face it, Next was not what I wanted it to be. Although it had a really cool roster, it was just super clunky, I guess.
You know what though? I will say, in general, it comes off as like a watered down, not just Gundam Versus, because I know a lot of people say that because of the green lock and yada yada, but like also Gundam Online Wars.
Yeah,
it's like a scaled down version of that because they have a lot of the lock on and whatnot as well, and they also have different objectives. And in fact, and you can attest to this since you did play it, there were actually SFSs in there.
Yeah,
you could be like riding stuff as well for transport. So having that little extra bit of depth while also kind of playing off of the third person perspective a little bit better. I was actually kind of interested in that, seeing the gameplay. The systems in that, like the energy and the limited time to get parts for the suits, that was abysmal, and that's definitely like relics of an older age of like free-to-play games still kind of behaving like old school mobile games, and then them turning around and realizing, oh, mobile games don't even act like this anymore. Like, what are we doing? So they just had to try to, modernize and bring it back to something that made more sense. And I think that for the most part, despite all the extra like upgrade currencies and whatnot in GBO2, I think they've struck a much better balance relatively.
I agree.
In terms of all that.
I agree.
And it just being a straight gotcha. Even though a lot of people, especially now that we're in 4-star, and 4-star's drop rate is like less than 1%. It's still at least a lot more straightforward, and there's a lot less what's the word, like urgency to do some of the events and whatnot in order to get things, as opposed to it just being in the gacha pool after it's all said and done.
Yeah, I do like. So the thing I do like about GBO2 is like how they, like, for the 4th year anniversary this year, they gave us various limited mission suits. We didn't get a new one, but I mean, overall, it was still neat for people coming to the game for the first time and stuff like that. I think that was a really nice.
And it was
fit to
very
it.
thematic, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's from that one fight in Unicorn. All those suits were actually cameoed in there, including, and this cracked me up. This, even if you see it, and if you look in the hangar, what is it? The Zaku heavy arms that literally peeked out from an old castle like for 2 seconds, and it's just in the game, and it's actually in the hangar right now, just chilling out.
That is funny. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, they replaced the old Zaku in here. Very neat. It's got our little shotgun fingy buddy here, so I think that's gonna be the last week if we haven't already hit it.
Yeah.
That's gonna be unlockable, and that was actually originally a clan suit. So
Yeah, because some of these limited suits were clan suits, or they were. Wait, isn't the GM? No, it was a semi striker. I thought it was the close.
Semi, yes.
Yeah, the semi was one.
No,
but
CC had its own banner.
Yeah, and I just think that's really neat. But it's not necessarily perfect system, but it's definitely it's right. It's where it needs to be, and it needs to be to improve on. We could probably talk for hours regarding how it can improve, but we can.
There's 4 years worth of history at this point of them doing a lot of balances and changes. So
it's a lot. It's a lot. So on the on the whole theme about suits and whatnot, what is your favorite GBO2 suit?
So because I have to stay doing a lot of these costs, not only just because I stream it, but also doing clans, the range goes from 250 all the way up to 700. I think in the middle, somewhere around maybe 450 or so, the Jetta has definitely seen me through a lot, as well as when we were doing that match, the Hazel Custom has definitely been a solid one. In the earlier days, it was actually the Alex, and thematically and through the series, I do like that design very much.
I think Alex was. I won't. The internet is the internet, so they'll laugh on what we say. But the Alex was a good suit. It was a fun suit. I do remember. I really liked the wrist Gatling, and the rifle. It was very fun. Didn't Alex have evasion level 2 as well?
Yep, it was one of the. I don't want to say one of the first, but one of the more prominent 3-star suits at the time that did have it, and that was a big deal when it did come out. I'm still a bit of a sucker for the rifle. I know a lot of people eventually went to bazooka because it's a lot more straightforward. But it's a very good suit, even at its cost. Although it does struggle not having some of the same more modernized maneuverability skills that other suits have, i.e. Jetta and whatnot.
Yeah.
It is a good kind of flexible suit for just constantly doing something. The rifle has a good heat dispersion going on. The wrist Gatling doesn't take long to come back up. It also has its Vulcans, and the melee isn't the worst ever, although I wouldn't lean on it too much, but you should still try to get it in there in between stuff anyway. Because it is a very mid to close sort of suit at the end of the day.
So it's definitely something I agree, and that would honestly be a suit I would tell a person coming to the game, and they'll probably get that suit. I don't know if that was one of the suggested recommended suit costs, but that's a suit I could definitely be like, hey, you should try running the Alex. It's well balanced.
The interesting thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. The interesting thing is that when we talk about introductory suits, there's this idea of what's available, especially in the DP shop and whatnot, as opposed to what you're probably going to be commonly getting in the gacha as well. I think Alex is a decent pick, especially because you can, if you really want to, just go blue Zuka with it, and it's very straightforward while also having some nicer sub weapons on it. For maneuverability's sake, though, even though it's not as easy to get, at least not right now. I don't know how easy it is for other people in the gacha, but the Jetta is a solid one at that cost as well. And anything that has things like force injector or aerial control, so that way you're actually still able to maneuver depending on when you're trying to land, so you don't get landing punished as easily and whatnot.
I love it. That's one of my favorite skills in the game.
It's very funny, and I know it's something that's in a lot of games. Like it's not just games like this, but the concept of like landing punishes definitely harkens my brain back to like Gundam Versus.
Yep.
Any idea because and similarly in this game when you land you get your boost back. Definitely not as drastically.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of funny if they did, but but the idea of certain suits having a lot of resistance, at the end of the day, if you can catch them in that neutral state, you're still able to get them with like instant stuns and stuff. There's very few that have enough skills piled up on each other for that to not be the case. Although, and this is something we could probably talk about all day, but the idea of like latency and it trying to dictate things for like maneuver armor, whether that person's still boosting or at rest. Sometimes there's a gray area in there, and that's kind of unfortunate, but you just kind of have to play it by ear and just learn the timings as best you can and just hope the game doesn't punish you for it.
Imagine getting punished. So it's interesting you mentioned Versus, because it's the same idea, the same concept and same idea. And I love to hear it because we definitely have had our time playing Versus in Extreme Versus series for a while, and that's a very good like connection there. So that's also another awesome opportunity. I feel like a news anchor. So this is a great opportunity. You mentioned Gundam Versus everything. Outside of GBO2, are there any other games you like to play? May they be Gundam or not?
I will say that I am still looking forward to Evolution, for better or worse. Definitely gonna try to get in there for a lot. Battle Alliance. In terms of other games, and honestly on my channel, like we went through the entirety of the Yakuza series. I do a lot of JRPGs. If it wasn't for GBO2 being a Gundam game, I probably wouldn't do a lot of PvP at all. I feel like, especially in a streaming aspect, having that be something that I was comfortable with and like excited to be an IP game, definitely was what just kind of had me go face first into doing like a competitive team-based game on stream. Because when I first started, I was doing Pokemon Go. I was a mobile streamer for a long time, and after a while I was doing more things from home, and then finally when I got the account set up and stuff, I was doing things for GBO2. And from there, it just kind of opened up. One of my other first secondary games was actually Octopath Traveler. So it's been having Champions of the Continent come out recently was actually pretty nice, just to harken back to all that. But yeah, most of the time I'm doing other just like single player games. Any other multiplayer games that we do is like typically tend to be co-op. For example, we were doing oh god, what is that game? The Viking game with the building.
Valheim?
Valheim, yes.
Yeah.
Magnum actually made his own server for that, and we were playing on there for a while. So it's normally things like that, but I'll probably end up squatting up with them when Evolution and whatnot comes out as well.
That's what's up. So I know I've asked everyone this, so I have a few more Gundam questions for you. The next Gundam question right here: if you were placed into a Gundam series timeline, what series would it be?
I would say, in terms of general timeline, probably still Universal Century. I think Zeta Era was actually pretty interesting, and I think Universal Century in general is a bit more lax in terms of it being a bit more alive, because there's just, and actually funny enough, outside of Zeta, there's a really interesting scene in Double Zeta where Jidao literally just puts on a helmet and just goes into a construction area and just kind of blends in with the group, because they're all just like blue or white collar workers that have to work all the time from like a young age to survive. So it's like you can literally just disappear one day. You could just put on some other dude's clothes for a second and no one would even blink twice as long as you did something useful. Like then that would just be fine. So if shit ever goes south in Universal Century, and shit, Yazan even did that, right? Like he just got bodied and then just showed up in several different stories. Like you can just be somewhere else. you don't have to get in there that hard, especially compared to like IVO, where there's literally like slavers and all this other shit going on, and it's not even hush hush and all that, and like other areas like Cherney is like post-apocalyptia technically. It's like there's a lot of other situations that are a lot more dire than Universal Century, despite how hellacious the beginning of it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like things very quickly try to force their way back into normalcy, even though that doesn't tend to happen that often.
Yeah.
But as a typical citizen who may go pilot, you can figure something out. You'll be fine.
And that's the one thing I love, just hearing people's responses to this question, because it's like, you know what, the first bit of UC kind of bumpy. After that, you could kind of just, make it to you die of natural causes rather than having something
immediately maul you, or like literally IBO has a fucking robot-based cataclysm. They had the fucking Geth in Gundam form just running around. Like, my god. Hell no.
It's hashtag not my timeline.
Not my timeline.
So the next and probably the last Gundam question for you is like, what is your favorite Gundam suit out of the entire franchise?
I'm gonna be honest with you. There was a time where I would still say the Alex, and it's still a strong contender for me. But if we're talking about having the same kind of kit while also being a little bit more over the top, Hainu Gundam has actually kind of taken its place.
Yes.
Then again, the second I found out it had a wrist gun of its own, I was like, oh, well, that's literally just a better Alex with fucking funnels. Why am I not surprised?
Yeah.
Considering that the Alex was supposed to be a suit for armor any damn way. So, like, you know what? That's a good progression. There's other things, I think, from other series. Having so much time in Wing Gundam, Heavy Arms was always a big favorite for a lot of Western people. Big Daka, big guns, whatever.
Yeah.
G Gundam has some hilarious and also amazing designs.
Agree. I love Schwarzbrüter. That's my boy.
Yep.
Shadow Gundam, I love it.
Good old Maxter Tequila Gundam's hilarious. The fact that they also show us some of the older generations from the past tournaments and stuff too, and those actually had some good designs going on. There's plenty to like.
There's definitely plenty to like. There's a Gundam for everyone in that series. But that I was just thinking about Tequila Gundam. All right, so before we
at least it's not literally like a fish.
Yeah, that's how I was.
Two fucking mermaid Gundam.
Was it Finland? Was it the Neo Finland's Gundam?
Or was that the windmill?
I think
Which one was the windmill?
I don't remember, but it wasn't Poland. I don't know. I'll look it up after this, and we can laugh. Someone will probably say, "Oh, it's such and such" in the comments. How do you know that? I'm like, bruh.
Oh, Nether Gundam.
Nether Gundam.
Okay.
Amazing. Wow. If you guys haven't watched G Gundam, you're in for a treat. Check it out. Just have fun with it. Watch English dubs because it's awesome. All right.
It's also one of the few times that like you're gonna see any of those voice actors ever again, because one of them literally became a doctor, and then a bunch of them just aren't in the game anymore. So
before we wrap it down, I'm gonna give you the opportunity. Are there like any interesting or any other cool facts about you as a person, or hobbies, or anything neat you like to share with people?
I would love to tell you yes, but honestly, right now I'm just trying to figure out a little bit more content. I'm just spread super thin on social media. I'd like to get more into editing myself. There was a time when I was much younger that I did Gunpla as well, but as I said to a lot of people, I don't have a lot of space to do that anymore. But one day, if I do get enough table extensions, I guess I wouldn't mind trying to do some of that live. It would be scuffed, and I would be horrible at it, but it's always something else to do.
Awesome. So for the final question here, being one of the members of Downtime in the Hangar, who would win in a pie eating contest? You, Emblem, or Magnum?
I'm gonna be honest with you, that's a pretty easy question just because of how cracked Magnum is about food. Despite his own, and I'm sure he'll probably talk about it a little bit in his own segment, despite his own condition, that motherfucker can eat. I'm pretty sure he'll just YOLO and just cram that shit away. I'm not gonna act like Emblem probably couldn't eat his fair share. I don't know how crazy his appetite is, but like I think Magnum, if it really comes down to it, and his sheer iron stomach and competitive spirit would see him through.
I was thinking he's very competitive. He's like, nope, I'm about to practice this.
He might barf afterwards, but he'll hold it down long enough to eat. He'll do it.
He will win. Awesome. All right. Cool. I think we're gonna get ready to wrap it up here. Yo, Gustav, it has been awesome talking with you. This is really, really fun, insightful in some ways as well. Hopefully it is for you all watching. Where can people find you on social media or, Twitch? What are your deets?
Oh, my lord. Well, here we go. Gustav_XIII over on Twitch. This is where some of the handles get a little bit weird. So, Twitter, it's Gustav the XIII because I can't do underscores. And on PlayStation, it's actually, as we were talking about while doing the matchmaking, it's actually XIV because someone took 13. But for the most part, everywhere else, it's at least Gustav, some number of underscores, and XIII. I actually am on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and all that good stuff as well. Trying to keep up with doing shorts as well as doing some playthrough videos from our single player games and trying to get some matches and stuff in there as well for GBO2.
Awesome. I will have all those links in the descriptions with all the underscores and all the X's and all the I's. I'm thinking like this is like Xbox Live days.
We'll figure it out from there.
We'll get it. All right. So I'm going to say, everyone, thank you for watching. I love you guys to death. As always, nothing but love. Gustav, I'll allow you to sign off. Take it away.
Alrighty, it has been a pleasure to be on here. This is Gustav_XIII. Be sure to pass by over on Twitch. And be sure to check out RedWolfVion doing more of these segments in the future as well with other people from Downtime and Hangar. And until next time, this is Gustav the 13th. I'll talk to you all later.